Hello. Well, a little bit about history. I have this text and I mentioned 1348, and it's the time a sultan constructs that beautiful Alhambra palace in Granada in Spain. And then in 1453, a sultan conquers the city of Constantinople, the Eastern Roman Empire, since almost 1,000 years. Well, Sultan conquered it, and so yeah, and then 1469, those Medici were in Florence, and so he married a Spanish noblewoman, Orsini. And in 1480, the Birth of Venus is painted by Botticelli. And in 1485, Hieronymus Bosch paints that famous painting, The Garden of Lust, with sins and hell and heaven and humans. And then in 1498, that priest in Florence who was opposed to all the art, well, he got executed. The Pope had warned him, but he didn't want to listen. And so Savonarola was finally killed. 1490, um, United Arab Emirates, a man who used, well, the stars to navigate in the open ocean, because, yeah, Muslims went to Indonesia, they went to Malaysia, but to navigate on the open ocean between, yeah, the Persian Gulf, India, and further on, Indonesia, you can't follow the coastline all the time. You go into the open sea and you need navigation. 1501, Iran, that, well, there was a new king and he wanted the Shiite Muslim tradition to be the state religion in Iran. So that's not Persia, that's Iran. And it's only from 1501 that a new dynasty rises here. There were several Muslim empires. One was in the region of Turkey, one in Iran, and then in North India there was also a Muslim empire. But so this new empire had a speciality that they wanted Shiism. In contrast, most Muslims are Sunnite. But Shiite, it was the state religion for a new country, Iran, in 1501. 1506, they start the construction in Rome of the St. Peter Basilica. The previous basilica there was over 1,000 years old, and well, they needed a new one. The previous one was still from Roman times. Then 1517, well, it's the start of the protest, because yeah, they needed a lot of money to build the St. Peter Basilica, and so you had to pay to go to heaven. And well, the Germans in southern Germany, they didn't like that idea. They said it's not religious at all, it's abuse, and we don't like it. 1532, Machiavelli writes his book. It's the idea that, well, you can lie, you can cheat, the aim is important, and you can use any means to, well, to reach your aim. And then in 1534, the King of England was married to the daughter of the King of Spain, but he had a new lover, but his wife didn't want to get divorced, so he got stuck with her. He wanted that the Pope gave him the permission to divorce her, to annul the marriage, but he didn't get that. And so instead he started his own church. And well, 1539, again that Medici family. This time someone married the daughter of the King of Naples. It's an under-king of the King of Spain, and they got 11 children together. And the Uffizi Palace, well, it's all here that it started, that wealth of the Medici. Then the same year, Copernicus in Poland, he writes a book that the earth goes around the sun and not the sun around the earth. Of course, he was far away in Poland, so the Pope didn't have him captured and killed. Then in France, 1549, the Queen, Catherine de' Medici, had a bad marriage. A husband, he loved Diane de Poitiers, his mistress, and so, but she had a good feeling for refinement. She was from Florence, and so her uncle had taken care that she got married to the King of France, and he was a pope, her uncle. He was also, of course, a Medici. And then 1555, Bruegel, he paints those beautiful landscapes. Peter Bruegel, a Flemish Dutch painter. And what he does is he makes a beautiful landscape in winter with ice skating. And of course, those things like sin were still present but the overhaul, the image you get is something pleasant, and all those sins, they vanished into that beautiful painting. That's not the same with Hieronymus Bosch, but with Bruegel we see that happening. And then 1560, you get Johannes Calvin. He never went to Holland, but influenced the country. And so he went to Switzerland. He was a very good scholar in Paris, but his ideas were also influencing Protestantism. 1600s, Marie de Medici, she is also married to the King of France, her husband dies, and so then the power comes into the hands of Cardinal Richelieu, and her son is Louis XIII, and he has a difficult relationship with his mother. And after Richelieu, it's Cardinal Mazarin who takes power in France. 1605, Cervantes publishes Don Quixote. So in Spain, apparently, knights had to do all kinds of things, and they wrote so many books about it. But Cervantes, he make a joke of it, and it's about a knight who gets crazy from reading too many of those knight stories glorifying knights and nobility. And so instead of having a horse, he has a mule. And instead of fighting armies with knights, he fights windmills. So, and of course, it's very, very funny. And it was a real bestseller in 1605. The book was indexed by the church in Latin America, but they smuggled it in. And then 1632, that sultan in North India was so sad about the loss of his wife that he had built in 20 years' time the Taj Mahal. Then 1632, Galileo, he did experiments and he had a telescope with which he could magnify the objects he saw 30 times. And so he saw things like craters on the moon, well, which was said to be without craters. So he discovered that everything they said was not always true. 1637, well, René Descartes writes, "I think, so I am." Well, he had to get away from France because, yeah, it was not so safe to stay there. Basically, what he said is that stop with thinking that the Holy Spirit is in your body and with your soul and all those things in the universe. Just feel that you think and that you exist. So